All right, recording. So if we have something that's inside of here, like var cat equals gato, and I put console.log cat. Let me bring up the console. And let me clear this. What? All right, so execute. So I'm not getting anything back. I should get undefined though. So let me change this to behavior, autosave, no, run. So I'm not even getting back undefined because it's not telling me anything. It should give me back undefined though because it's at this point cat is undefined. If I put cat outside of here, run this, it says rar. Notice that it's a piece of shit and it's not letting me see all of it. Why? Why does it keep going down? What? God damn it, what a piece of shit. Okay. Hold on. You guys, please put yourselves on mute if you guys aren't already on mute. It's very simple. There's someone still not on mute. Evan, please. Por favor. Okay. So notice that scope, even though this application is being stupid, you can notice that. Here, let me do it the manual way. It's unfortunate, but we're gonna have to do it. Oh god, this is gonna be ugly. Okay. I was hoping to do everything inside of CodePen, but CodePen's being stupid. So notice that it says rar instead of cat, and that's because cat is undefined. So the way that scope works is that anything defined inside of here does not exist on the outside. However, on the outside, in this case, this is called global scope. Things can get passed to the inside. So if I were to call console.log cat in here, you're actually going to see rar twice. So if I execute this, if I execute this, and there's one issue that I'm running into, I never called add numbers. So that's why I was running into that issue of not seeing undefined. So if I do this, I see rar twice. If I go back to var cat equals meow, and I remove this, let's see, run this. It says uncaught reference error, cat is not defined. So even though we called it, the element from here does not exist. So this is global scope on the outside and local scope on the inside. Did that help resolve the issue, Michael? If not, again, we have plenty of time, so we can go over more stuff. Makes more sense. Excellent. Okay. Can you explain query selector and document.query selector? Yes. So query selector. So if I'm doing jQuery, so it actually allows me to use jQuery in here. So this is a good lesson on how to use CodePen and how it's also kind of a piece of crap. But, so we can actually Someone's again on unmute. You guys, please. It's really simple. Just add mute to yourself. It's so easy. Just mute. Here, whoever this is, mute. There. Charlotte, please mute. Someone needs to be the muter. Let's see. I'm gonna elect someone to be muted. Vanessa, you seem like a nicer person than me. If someone is not muted, please PM them and let them know that they are unmuted. Thank you. So at this point, we have something inside of CodePen which allows us to actually include a lot of different things. So if we want to include jQuery, we actually just include it, and that's it, and just save and close. And now we can use jQuery inside of here. So it's pretty cool. What I'm going to do is I want to start using document.querySelector. So I'm just going to sample HTML. Come on. Here we go. And this is terribly done because it's all in caps. So this is really bad. But I just care about the jQuery at this point. So in here, what I'm going to do let's select this element, h1. ID equals the header. And this one is class equals medium header. And in here, what I'm going to do is say, oh, actually, we're not using jQuery. We're just using document.querySelector. Sorry, I thought you meant querying something. So if I use document.querySelector, so this is not using jQuery. D'Artagnan, so I don't know where you're messaging me privately. Just message on everyone. So we have document.querySelector. Let's see, query selector. Let me make sure I'm spelling that right, or using the proper casing. Yeah, so it is camel case. All right. So if I wanted to store something, let's say a document node. So I say var, I don't know, blah, or element equals document.querySelector, and I put it in here. So I just say, I don't know, the header. And this allows me to essentially do the same thing as what jQuery does, which is select anything that I want and store that node inside of whatever I want as well. I could actually just use that as it is. So if I wanted to, I could just put document.querySelector, the header in here, but I'm going to just store into a console.log. And it's actually not going to give me back a jQuery object. It's going to give me back an element node from pure JavaScript in here. So again, this is crappy, so I have to do it from here. God, this is so messy. But notice that I get back the entire element. h1 ID equals the header. This is a header h1. So I'm able to select anything and put any kind of query in here. So if I wanted to do a class or an element selector, I could do that too. So if I wanted to do medium header, I could do that too. So let's run this. And notice that I get back the entire node itself. Right, so the entire node comes back. What was that? So Evan, does that make sense, or did you want a further explanation? Excellent. Okay, let's go to the next one. Stream 24/7. If you guys want to watch me do really weird, nerdy shit outside of programming, then yeah, maybe. Does it return undefined in the beginning because var cat has to equal an array of numbers? No. So the reason that it's returning undefined because the var cat does not exist, or it did not exist in its previous state. So if we have any kind of variable that we're trying to call, so if I do console.log cat, that doesn't exist. So if I try to run this, I get a reference error, and it says, oh God, it says cat is not defined. So that always happens when you don't, when it doesn't understand what cat means, or when it doesn't understand what a variable that you're trying to call that hasn't been defined is equal to, or if it hasn't been defined. If I just did, actually, so if I just did this, if I did var cat, and if I'm just declaring the variable, watch what happens. So now it just says undefined. So it exists, but there's nothing inside of it. So before, it's like I didn't even know what it was. So it's kind of confusing because it says it's not defined, but it's essentially very similar. So if I have something like this, cat is not defined, that means there's nothing in there. It's going to be like, well, I see it, but there's nothing in there. But if I do meow, I get back meow. Okay, so did that make sense, Andy? Not global scope, it just didn't exist. Oh, you're talking about the previous example. Yeah. So because it was inside of a function, you can't access variables outside of that function. So it is limited to the scope of that function. That is correct. I'm having fits trying to add a start button to the Crystal homework. I think it's some kind of scope issue. Okay, so I can give a hint. That's something other people might not want to hear. So if you guys don't want to hear, just close your ears or whatever, earmuffs. I would suggest that you create a button, and that button will essentially activate something. So you can have that button tied to a function which starts a game. And the function itself maybe contains some kind of loop that contains your game logic. Maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe. So I don't want to give too much on that, because if I give you the answer, then that gives you the homework. But that might be a way to go if you're getting stuck. All right, so more questions. And more wine. Yep, you can always put a loop within a function. If you encapsulate anything inside of a function, the code will not execute until it's called explicitly. Yep. So ask questions. You guys can ask about anything, like networking, I don't know, job hunt stuff, programming. Ooh, can two different event handlers be passed to click or on as the event handler? That's a good question. I think only one event handler can be passed at a time, but you can put that event handler on multiple elements, meaning that if I were to do something like this, I can also do, I think it's like this, and then I could do hello, so this is another element. So that way, this helps reduce the amount of repeating. If it's like, multiple elements that you click on do the exact same thing, then just execute them in the same function. just using multiple element handlers or whatever query selector you want to use. However, I think it only executes on one. I'm not 100% sure. I have to check the documentation. Check the jQuery docs to see if you can add multiple event handlers on the same element. I'm not 100% sure on that. You might be able to actually. Usually I do it separate though, because, well, no, there are cases where you want it to be the same. Like, let's say that you want the same action to happen if someone either does a left arrow or clicks on the left arrow button. But I would, yeah, that would be a good reason to do it. Yeah, so definitely research the jQuery documentation for that. You might be able to do it. Are we just gonna do karaoke then? Come on, don't be shy. Ask questions. I used one event click to choose an option to make the computer choose an option at the same time for scissors. Wait. Click to choose an option? Oh, no. So what he's talking about was something like this. Left arrow down or something. So could you put multiple event calls? You might be actually able to do something like this. I would create something like that for sure. So I'm not sure if they have that. Are calling and callback the same thing? Good question. No, they are not. Calling a function means I'm executing the function. So for instance, if I have a function declaration, if I say, I don't know, do stuff, and I do this is calling a function. If I go down here and I do a callback function, the callback function would exist as something that executes after a process has finished. So if I have, let's just use this, the header. Oh, another cool thing about what we're using over here with CodePen, it actually will preview the application as well. So if you want to see what it looks like, it's down here. So if I do this is a callback function right over here. So this is the callback function. And this is me calling a function. The callback function executes implicitly as soon as this action is completed. Yes, you can ask a CSS question, absolutely. So Ali was asking about CSS. I'm gonna wait on that before doing the next one, which is from Elijah. Z-index, the way it works is, let's say I have multiple elements and I need them to sit on top of one another. If those elements are relatively positioned or absolutely positioned or fixed position, I can actually set the z-index higher or lower so that they sit on top of one another. This is usually done in the case of JavaScript animations, CSS animations, Or when it comes to designing websites that look snazzy, like marketing campaigns and stuff, you'll probably be using Z-index at some point. But it basically just layers things on top of one another, similar to how Photoshop works. So if I have a Z-index of, pop-ups. Well, pop-ups, they tend to use like the, I think a lot of pop-ups are actually modals now. So they will have a much higher Z-index. And they will prevent you, and they'll also have a background that has another Z-index, so you can't click on anything behind it. So that is a good example, actually. Please don't go around creating pop-ups. Does that make sense? Nope, definitely not. Please don't do that. All right. Next is, yes, absolutely. So a good question about Elijah, or from Elijah. You could definitely solve it in so many different ways. In fact, I encourage trying to find out different ways of solving it and seeing which is the most efficient. We have provided one way that is efficient in terms of time efficiency. But whatever your logic was, if you use the minimal amount of code and it solves the problem, then that is the solution. Over time, you're going to learn best practices on what's faster in JavaScript and whatnot. But for right now, this application was so small that, unless it was like an infinite loop, memory would not have mattered. Okay. So now we have Andy. When a function has a parameter in it, to call the function, you would just need the name followed by parentheses. That is correct. Yeah, and you can call it whatever you want. So function, blah, whatever you want to name it. It should be named based on the information that's going to go in, though. So not the specific piece of information, what kind of information will go in. If I have a window.setTimeout function calling a reset, should it be outside of a callback function scope if that callback has a conditional statement that decides when the game is won or lost? Okay, so if I have something that looks like this, let me just double check. Set timeout. Yeah, set time, and then timeout is one word. So if I do this, this is actually pretty cool. So it exists always on the global scope. It's kind of weird. Set timeout is a little funky. And it's calling a reset. And is the reset going to be a custom reset function? All right. Come on, come on. Okay. So this uses a callback function. So as soon as you set the set timeout, it has a callback function. Second argument, I believe, is the timeout after how many seconds? Yeah. So and what you're doing is you're calling a reset function that you've predefined. So you're doing something like this. Oh, time out, not time out. Thank you, Jamie. The inner Gunter in me wanted to do that. Is it Uter? Not Gunter. Uter. So if that callback, if that callback has a conditional statement that decides when the game is won or lost. So if I do something like this, if won, then reset, else. I guess you don't even need an else, right? Otherwise, we'll just keep going. So I'm wondering what it should be. Are you referring to it as being the window.setTimeout function or the reset call? Because this will work. If I run this, oh crap, I didn't get to show this on time. Let's see, what's going on? Seems to not be working. Oh, no wonder. There's no one. So var1 equals true. That will work. I'll take a second. See, after 1 second, it says, hi. So the window.set is set inside the scope of the callback? Of which callback? Of the reset? Oh, yeah. Window.setTimeout is always a global function, so you can't nest it in anything else. It's kind of an odd one. Yeah, so you can't. I'm pretty sure that's like a weird thing about JavaScript is set timeout in a function. Let me see. I'm pretty sure it's like one of those weird things. Can you call set timeout in a function? Oh no, it allows you to use it. No, it allows you to use it. Okay, cool. Yeah. So the window.set is inside the scope of the callback. So I think this is a very specific question that's just specific to your homework rather than a conceptual question. I'm not sure if everyone else is going to benefit from this. I was hoping that we could cover just the window.setTimeout, but it looks like this is something that's very specific to your homework. And I'd have to look through all of your code. The window.set is inside the scope of the callback. So there's a callback function. So the scope is the main issue. But I'm not sure exactly what the issue is. Okay, so there's an if statement within it. But okay, so so define what it means again. So what's the context of it? Do you mean inside of the onClick? You can take yourself off of mute if you want to describe your problem, actually.
Okay, so when I hit a window set timeout function, if I have an onClick function that runs an if statement to make decisions about stuff in the game, if I have the set timeout function within the scope of that same callback function, is that going to mess with things? Because I don't know where to put my set timeout function. It keeps getting called at the wrong time. And I'm having trouble figuring out whether I have to have it outside my start function, but within my doc ready function, or
so what does the set timeout do? It resets everything after a second, or what is it?
Yeah, I have modals that describe who won and who lost, and then I want them reset along with the variables for the score and stuff like that. So I have a doc ready function running the whole page, and I have a start function encapsulating the code for running the game.
Right. Okay.
And then I have a conditional statement within an on-click function to
I think you cut out. But my question is, why are you using a set timeout? I think you cut out completely. Okay, I don't know if we lost you, so I'm gonna move on to the next question. Does anyone have any other questions? Oh, if we use Bootstrap, do we need to use a reset.css? Yeah, no, we don't. So that's a good question. Bootstrap actually does contain normalize.css by default, so you already have one of those to start off with. Var's not buggy. It's just that it doesn't have as much scope. So there's a few more variables that are going to be coming up as we go into the newer versions of JavaScript. Let and const. So const or let is something that has block scoping. So anything that's contained in something that looks like this is actually scoped. So for right now, though, if I put things in like, if I put something inside of any kind of block statements, they're not scoped to those block statements. So with let, you're allowed to then start scoping things in addition to using function scope. Const actually makes up for the lack of using constants. So in other languages, you have the ability to lock variables, meaning that you don't want them to change accidentally. So you put them inside of variables called const, and you're going to be using those a lot later on as well. But for right now, we're going to keep everything simple, and we're just going to put any kind of reference to data for a variable inside of the var keyword. Those are good questions, though. Vanessa, I think someone's off of mute.
نعم لا
No, he's definitely off of mute. Nader, Nader. You guys. Most important thing, make sure you guys are on mute. We don't want to hear your whole family talking while we're going over JavaScript stuff. All right, so our attribute able to be accessed and mutated dynamically. If you do something to a data value, will the code remember that you did that, or would it only remember it within the same scope? For example, if the data value is an integer like 5 and you subtracted 1 from it within a function, next time you access that data value, would it be 4? Yes. So this would, not only does it dynamically change it, but you can visibly see those changes as you make them. So if I were to make some attribute changes, so there's two ways of actually using data values. There's one using the data method in jQuery, and you can actually use that directly in JavaScript as well. Or you can use the attribute data value. If you use the attribute data value, then what happens is, so John, now that you're back, what should you first be doing?
I got completely cut off right when my computer went blank.
Okay, but the first thing you should do is when you come back.
Mute. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So what happens is it actually changes the information visibly. So if I have like a data attribute in here, and I decremented that, you would actually see the change. So why don't we actually do that? So let me do so why don't we just like change it? just manually. It should have changed it. Let's see, medium header, attribute, data blah. Am I doing it right? And if I go into the DOM, let me double check that. Oh, God. Okay. Make sure it's changed in the DOM. Good God, this code is so complicated. All right. So one issue is with inspecting CodePen is just it's really complicated. So why don't I just go here, inspect. Oh, jeez. Okay. Oh, let's see. Oh, that's the code. Sorry. So now if I look at this, oh, still at 45. Okay. Did I execute it right? Medium header. That should have updated the action. I'm muffled. Why am I muffled? Can you guys still hear me? Not get muffled? Okay. Let's see what is going on. So I executed this dot attribute run save run. Dear God, this is taking so long. Normally it changes that, but I'm doing something wrong. Let me see. Data blah attribute 32. Yeah, it's not updating here. Here, let me get this back. That should dynamically update it. So let me see. Var meow equals that, and let me do console.log meow. Oh, that's weird. So I'm getting an undefined. I'm not finding this correctly. Medium header, attribute, data, blah. What am I doing wrong? Oh, you guys see what I did wrong? Nope, even simpler. Is the query synced up to HTML? No, it's automatically synced up using CodePen. So this is a good thing about debugging. So let's see if you guys can help me debug it. I figured it out. Right, so it gave me undefined. That gave me a hint as to me running into a simpler error, meaning that the issue lies over here. Let's see if you guys can figure it out. Yes, it's a class, not an ID. So I do this, run, and I'm getting back 45, which is good. So now if I want to change it, 32, I check it, I get back, oh God, I got back way too much. Let's do, okay, so let's do this. If I just want to see the value, then I use a getter. And I do that. Okay. There we go, 32. So now that works. So we changed it and it dynamically updates it inside of your information. It does not dynamically change your text editor. This is our text editor, but it will dynamically update the information in here. Yeah, if you want, you can actually run counters on it. So if I wanted to run a counter on it, I could do, you know, let's see. Updates, header. And every time it's run, it gets this. So previous val. And then what I'm going to do is every time I update, or let's say increase header val, I can do prev val plus 1. So now if I call this, it should work. Yeah, it should work. So now it should be, I actually wanted this to be gone. So let's just actually just do this. So now let me run it, and let's see what it is. Oh, and I'm not console logging it. So let me console log. So much work. There we go. Yeah, that's good. So I run that. 451. That doesn't sound about right. Oh, can you guys tell me what happened here? Why am I getting 451 over and over? Yes, it's concatenating them. So that means in order to solve that, what do I have to do? Yep. If I run this now, I get 46. So now it works as an incrementer. Every time I call increase header val, the value of the previous value here increases by 1. And I could change that to 1 billion if I wanted to, or whatever I wanted to do. No worries. All right, so going back to John's issue with scoping, make sure that you guys are putting, you guys are remembering scope. So if you have a callback function, that is definitely scoped within that function. Anything outside of a event listener will not be understood. So make sure that you understand that. If you create a function on the outside and call it on the inside, those are available on the global scope though. Other questions? Before the wine puts me asleep. Good question. So is it to our advantage as bootcamp grads to do internship or full-time position? It depends on what you want to do. So if you're trying to be a full-time developer, apply for full-time positions. If you want experience before going to college or while you're in college, internship might be better. If you want to make a little bit extra money while still having time for yourself, then try contracting. So No worries. D'Artagnan, if you try and update an object that has a text method attached to it versus the object having a val method attached to it, what are the differences to what you can do with the data that you put in? So that's a good question, actually. So if I do something like, and these are jQuery objects. So if I try to get medium header dot text, and I want to update that. So if I'm trying to update this, so you mean like differences? Oh yeah, thank you. Making the same mistake again. So differences in terms of passing in data to the text. Is that what you mean? So with text, what happens is I can only put text inside of here or retrieve text that's inside. So if I retrieve text, it means that I don't pass anything in. If I want to set text, then what I can do is if I do this, blah, 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 and watch what happens to, this is a medium header. Instead it says blah, 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 right? So it replaces the information in between the tags. Passing the new data to other users? So are you saying like you want to retrieve the text? Okay, so the question that you're trying to ask is if I'm trying to retrieve information, so not just update, but I want to retrieve the information from this and then pass it to other users. Okay, so the val is used in the case of inputs usually. So text is used when working with text-based elements. So you want to get the content inside of this element. Whereas if I did .val, this is related to input type elements. So if I had, let's say I had an input type equals text, this will just give me back whatever is inside this input element once the user typed it in. So usually value or val is used to get the information that user typed in. Text is usually used when you're trying to determine or when you want to change the text of an element, or when you want to retrieve the text of an element that you usually set rather than the user. That was a good question. Does that make sense or no? So TJ Miller, I'll get to you in a second. I just want to make sure D'Artagnan is understanding this. So D'Artagnan, did you understand the answer, or do I need to explain it a different way? Essentially, that text is used for getting the content for text-based elements, and val is used for input type elements. I'm not sure if D'Artagnan's still there. All right, so TJ. Yeah, but he could still write in here. Here. Jira is used a lot. So Jira, I've used a lot. I also use Wrike. I've used Trello. I've used like everything. It really doesn't matter. There's so many out there. I would just get used to whatever you're going to be using at work. Pick one for this class and just use it. Get really good at it. Maybe work with a few more. And then, just have fun with them. Because they're just project management tools. You can pick them up in like an hour. Yeah. Nothing too difficult about them. They're meant for like developers and non-developers. More questions? Yeah. So basically, you can make anything to a click selector. Anything that is an element that is a viewable element can be turned into an element that can be clicked on and used for click selection. Favorite homework 3 assignments I've seen so far. Did I show you guys the, oh, you mean from this class? If it's from this class, they're all my favorites. But from the previous class, let's see. Let me see if I can find Charlotte's. Show you guys this one. So this one's okay. So this is the Hangman homework that she made. I think this is Arcanine. Used flame thrower. This is a Hangman game. That was made by Charlotte. Shit. Who is Onyx's evolution? Steelix. There you go. Thank you. Steelix used Iron Tail. Thank you. That's just Articuno, right? Yeah. Wait, no, that's Lugia. Sorry, Lugia. So this is just one of them. So I think she also used an API that allowed her. Oh, here's another one. So if you guys want to see something really cool for homework 4, there's a couple of them. I've already showed some of these to the other class, but this is homework 4. Same thing, Charlotte. She spent about 50 hours, I think, on like each one of these. So none of these are easy. Animations can be better, but still pretty cool. There's also this other one. I'm just going to choose the ones that are based on video games just because that's me. Marcos Lee. Where is he? And this guy came in with no degree, no programming background. He got 3 job offers. Let's see. And he's working full time with family issues. So, and this is one of my favorites. For week 4, this actually has timers on it. And yeah, it's gonna die. So, pretty cool stuff. There's a lot that were made. I'm sure you guys are gonna make some amazing stuff too. You guys don't have to. Some people get obsessed with certain homeworks and they do like crazy shit. Again, it's up to you, like what you guys enjoy. Some people love building games. Some people love building like security applications. A lot of different things that people make that different people are interested in different parts. Like we had people create like crazy finance applications for their projects because some were like, you know, like investment bankers, things like that. One person made like a smart mirror because they're more interested in like the hardware stuff. So it's all up to you guys, whatever you guys want to build. I would suggest you guys start getting into groups for Project 1 starting really soon, just because that's starting in like 3 weeks. So start getting to know one another using the pair programming thing. Instructions have not been posted. Actually, let me find those right now. I don't know where the hell it is. Let's see. GitHub. think it's in here. Hmm. Let me see. I actually made my own document based on this. Yeah, this is it. It's gonna be a little overwhelming right now, but I can send it out. So let me send this out actually. I can just share this document. Yeah, if anyone wants to start getting started early, feel free. I'm gonna post this in instructor resources. Tech Days next week. When can I expect to see, do, and learn? I have never been to Tech Day. I heard it's huge, so I have no idea. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people. So I think it was like thousands and thousands of people. I would suggest having resumes, talking about your projects. I mean, you guys are still going to be, I mean, I would suggest networking a lot. Use that time because it's going to be very difficult to get a job that early. But what you can do is you can start like talking to a lot of people and being like, hey, like, you know, this is my background. This is what I'm interested in, blah, blah, blah. This is what I can provide. You know, here's my resume, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing well in the class, or I'm doing well in these aspects of it, whatever. And just really start networking with people. You know, if you get a lead, you get a lead. If not, then, you know, no skin off your back. You guys don't have any more questions? I thought everyone was confused about JavaScript. Can you call nested functions in the global scope? Good question. You can, but it's a little tricky. So if you were to bubble up the function and its result and pass it as a variable, then you could. For right now, it's a little bit tricky. I wouldn't suggest doing it because I think what's going to happen is cause a lot of confusion. But there is a way to return data from a nested function back to the function that's one level deep from the global scope, and then have access to information from there. It kind of is. It's like, so if you wanted to call a function, you can call it anywhere you want. But if you're trying to call it from the global scope, it just makes it really hard because you're trying to access something that's nested inside. Rather, you want to think about the other way around, meaning like you're trying to call global functions from the nested scope. Do we have something similar to media queries? Yes. In JavaScript, you can have access to the window. So you can do media queries using the window.innerHeight and window.innerWidth. So you can create your own version of media queries. Let me just put something in the fridge real quick. Think about some more questions. Should we look at using our homework as thing to put in our portfolio? Depends. It's a good question. If you have a lot of things that you've done for that homework and it's special, like the Pokemon Hangman game, or the Final Fantasy one and stuff like that, then I would definitely recommend that. Otherwise, it's definitely going to be something that's like redundant if it's not unique, and it's meant to help you with your algorithmic skills and understanding the technologies. However, you will be putting your projects into your portfolio. So you're going to have 3 projects for your portfolio to build throughout this program. No one's asking questions. I'm going to start doing karaoke. Okay. JavaScript question. If you guys have questions, you guys can unmute yourselves too. That's fine. I just don't want everyone talking at once because I think that will just, it won't lead to anything productive.
I have a question.
Yeah, so Kevin. Is that you?
That was D'Artagnan.
So Kevin was first. He has a JavaScript question. So I want him to go, then Fausto. And then, so if you have a question, like first post it into the chat, and then we'll go in order from there. So Kevin is just typing it out, I guess. Oh, his mic's not working, that's why. When we have the orange objects like this, orange objects? Wait, what? What are orange objects? Oh, you mean the syntax highlighting. Got it, okay. So, I think those are keywords. Syntax highlighting and Sublime. I think what it does, from my memory, if I just, let's see, one of these. God damn it. Let's go to any one of these. Let me put keyword. this. Event is highlighted. Is this highlighted in here? This doesn't seem to be highlighted. Function is, I don't know what the orange one actually means. In this case, it's event, which is the implicit argument being passed in. So I haven't really ever paid attention to like the syntax highlighting that much. So yeah, I don't really know. It seems like it's doing it for implicit objects being passed in. Let's see. So could you go over the use case of an example for the JavaScript bind function? So this is a good question. We're not actually going to using bind yet, but when we start using React, we're going to be using bind a lot. What bind does is you use it at the end of a function. And what you're going to do is you're going to bind this. So function, whatever. And then you're going to do dot bind, and I do this. And what that does is it says, okay, whenever I'm using this inside of here, it refers to what was being called as the calling object outside of this function. That way, I keep the context of what this is. I can't think of a good use case right now because we're not really working with a lot of things that deal with scope with using this right now. We're using this in a very simple way. When you start going to React components where you have, so what happens is, let's say that you have a function, blah, or better yet, var cat equals object, some method, function, whatever. And here you have another function. You say gato, and you try to call this dot hello, or this. Let's see. Let me think. What would I do? Okay, so what I have here is two properties inside of an object, some method, and then years. And let's say that I'm trying to do this dot years. This is going to run into an issue because when I try to call gato from anywhere that's here or nested within some method, it won't understand what this means. But if I did dot bind this, here's your orange again. So I guess it is just implicit things being passed in. What happens is it will keep the scope of this and pass it into here. So that way I can use this at dot years in here. And I won't get confused about this, what this means. Because if you actually refer to this that doesn't understand what the scope of this is, it'll actually refer back to the global scope, which is, in the case of a browser, it's the window. So that's going to sound really confusing right now, and it is. It makes a lot more sense when you start using it with like something that's a lot more complicated, like a lot of nested functions. Because as soon as you get one more function deep, if you're one function deep and I use this here, this will work. But if I call another function, why does this not understand what this is referring to? If I didn't use bind. Yeah, scope, exactly. It's like, it's basically saying keep the scope of this and pass it into the function. So whatever the variable is, if you want to keep it within scope of the function or functions inside of it, then you just bind it. And then if you want to keep like the scope of function, you're gonna have to keep binding each function as you nest deeper and deeper. No worries. Come on, guys. Ask me questions before I start going into karaoke.
I have a question.
Yes, who's it?
It's D'Artagnan.
Hey.
I was running into issues using .val versus .attribute when I wanted to then add values together, stuff like that. I still don't understand a lot about
Oh, okay.
when I was trying to ask before, like
Yeah.
.val, HTML, or attribute.
So .val will only work with elements that have input type fields. And generally, it's used for anything that's an input type element. So if I have an element that's an input, this element will have a val. It will have a value. Whereas attribute, you can store information inside of any element
Right. Okay.
and retrieve information from that element.
Yeah, it's eventually what I did. I just didn't know if there were any other little zaps that I could know about.
No, attribute is a good way, and attribute and data are good methods to use in jQuery to store and retrieve information from HTML elements.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at the build of this game, even though the game is simple. I run into scope issues. Is it better to build from, when you build an HTML page, build from the micro to the macro, right? But I'm finding that when I started with the micro on my page, then I get to the kind of macro and I'm screwing up my scope in all kinds of ways. And is there a roadmap of how you should build the scaffolding of your stuff so that you don't run into that when the code gets so long that you start losing track of it?
So the question is, like, how do you architect an application? And the issue that you're running into is that you as it starts scaling up, it becomes a lot more complicated. What I would suggest first is breaking down, again, going back into problem solving. So first determine what problem or problems that you're trying to solve. Break those down into pieces and try to solve as much as you can as components, meaning that as isolated pieces that work together. So if you had a larger problem, try to break it down into 3 parts, and then try to break each of those parts into smaller parts. And then as you're working on your application, every 25 minutes, spend 5 minutes and trying to see the big picture. So this is where pair programming works really well, because the driver is focused on the details, whereas the passenger is working more on the big picture type stuff. Like, how do the pieces fit together with each other, rather than how does this particular algorithm work? Have you watched the video that I posted, right, before?
Yes, I did.
Okay. That one was a very granular approach, but if you want to take a very high-ended approach, it's just going to take a lot of time to understand like how to get pieces to fit together. The way I do it is, again, just one approach, which is it's very much like an engineering approach, which is like, you take a problem, you try to understand it from a high-level perspective, you break it down into its components. Each of those components have micro components. But as just like divs or containers, you can think of each of those larger components as working with each other. Similar to what we did with the fridge game, where we had 3 different parts. And notice that we solved each part separately, but you could see how one relies on the other and how they needed to work with each other. So it is important to understand how to do that, and that's just going to take a lot of practice. If your code is getting messy, I would suggest using functions to encapsulate your code. And I would also suggest using a lot of pseudocoding. So make sure you're not writing out your code. Make sure that you pseudocode everything first and then write in your code. It's going to take much longer to pseudocode than it is to code. Once you pseudocode everything, the code becomes a lot faster to write because you
Yeah,
have a logic block.
pseudocoding is a wonderful thing. I learned that this week.
Yes, that can be very beneficial. No one has any more questions? Are there certain types you have that's better to solve first, second? I would always solve in order of operations. I solve from beginning to end. If you guys work at a company, it's going to be a lot. I mean, it's not. It's actually going to be the same because they're going to give you pieces of a larger application, and you're going to have to like fix something or build something, and then that's going to have its own pieces. I would just take it again, like one step at a time. Like, all right, this needs to do this, so then this will need this. Therefore, this will need this. Therefore, this will need this. So these are the different pieces that need to go into the application. How do I then start solving for each one of these? And then again, you start solving for one, and then after 25 minutes of work, you see how if you're going on the right path of being able to hook this on to the other ones as well. So not just solving, but like pseudocoding all of these things as well. Is it highly recommended with JavaScript before jQuery? I think it is because jQuery is just built on JavaScript, and jQuery, when you guys get to React, you're not going to be using jQuery anymore, or Angular and stuff like that. It's just going to be vanilla JavaScript. And regular JavaScript now can be used on Node to do like robotics and all kinds of other cool stuff that's like outside of just web development, because jQuery is just for web development. There's a fan blowing in my face because it's hot. I can. God damn. All right. Are there any good resources for archetypal patterns we'll be using? Yes. Please check curriculum resources. We do list a bunch of things for a whole bunch of different things. I don't know if we have design patterns or anti-patterns up there yet. I think we do. I'm not 100% sure though. If not, let me know and I can start posting some good stuff. There's a really good book from O'Reilly on JavaScript design patterns. Okay, yeah, just remind me and then I'll link you the book. So 30 people, only like 3 people asking questions? You guys all like questions about stuff. It's okay to speak up. I encourage speaking up. Is it best practice to use pre-built CSS classes to manipulate the web page, or is it okay to just manually edit the CSS directly when needed? Depends on what you want to do. I suggest using pre-built classes because they are already done in a way that's usually responsive and adheres to some user experience rules. And then if I need to customize it, I use my own CSS after that. Yep. Let me ask you guys a question. Did you guys start using the donuts? So you can just post in chat. Sorry about getting matched with the TA. It just includes everybody. Okay, make sure you guys reach out because today, I mean, it would be a great day because you guys don't have class, so it's just review. So maybe like after this is done, just do a quick 20-30 minutes, and just go over an in-class exercise together. TJ always swipes left. I want to see how that turns out because I might incorporate it to the other universities too. Let's just see how that works. It seems to be a good solution because it seems like it's auto matching. I might have to filter results to remove certain people like myself and TAs and Elizabeth and all that. Is there any way to stop an append method? Like to stop? There's a way to stop an animation. There's a way to. So is that off? Off. Let's see. Stop a jQuery method. Is it that? I mean, I would just use a conditional statement, meaning that the append method will only work either with a set condition inside of a loop or that if this condition is not met in a conditional statement, then it won't run the append. So if you're doing something like make everything append, then I would just set a conditional statement that says like if this, then append, otherwise don't append it. There we go. Yeah, so off does remove event handler. So, but if you remove the event handler during runtime, then you won't be able to use it again during runtime unless you add it back on manually. I think there's a way to dynamically add it back on actually, but that'd be kind of weird to do it that way. What's the use case? Oh yeah, you can absolutely just put in an if statement. I think that's a lot better. Generally, when you want to get rid of the event handler is, let's say that you want to prevent functionality from happening throughout the rest of the application, or they kept clicking on something, like it's an annoying user or something, then you prevent that event handler from running. So did you guys catch a break over the weekend? Anyone feeling more relaxed? Yeah. Somewhat. Yes. No. It's good. Very much so. And can you show me how to document already in the game.js file? So everyone's just been catching up on code. Okay, that's what I expected. Homework 3 solutions should be up there. So if you go on GitLab, you should see it up there. Nader is asking how you use document.ready in the game.js file. So you just put it above everything else. So you just do document.ready. Wait, no, that's not it. There we go. .ready. and just put everything in here. Wait, almost. There we go. Wait, shit. Hold on. Whoa, what the hell? Oh, okay. What is happening? I think, Nader, you were sharing your screen, right? You can unmute yourself now.
Yeah, by mistake I shared it, but I think I unshared it, right?
Yeah, I think you can share it again if you want to show me, because, I mean, did what I wrote make any sense?
I wasn't able to see what you wrote. I was trying, for some reason.
Oh, right. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Okay, let me go back to sharing my screen, and then just wrap everything in something like this. Maybe your syntax was off, because you make sure you have these parentheses.
But then do you put the script tag inside the function?
No. Do you ever put script tags inside of JavaScript?
I guess not.
No, script tags are only used inside HTML.
Okay. And then if you put the script link in the top of the form, the script will not run until the document is ready, correct?
Yeah, so so what happens is if you ever use the script tags instead of JavaScript, it will run into an error because this is HTML. And yes, this will only execute once the document is loaded.
Okay.
So Michael, are you seeing solution 3 now? For homework 3, sorry. Excellent. There's also a video solution inside of the README. So it's a YouTube video from Lisa Battle. So far I'm still getting the same responses from the same people. I want to hear other people ask questions. Bug me. The gem game is not due Saturday. Actually, wait. Let me think. So, did we finish up all the jQuery on Saturday? Let me think. Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. Yeah, actually, that one is due on Saturday. The next homework is not due the Saturday afterwards. Correct. Also, I'm thinking about doing another change. So in the very beginning, what I wanted was to solve was an issue that students were running into in the last 2 cohorts. And that was that we weren't catching the ones who were feeling like, really stressed out. I mean, everyone in the beginning is pretty stressed out. But, everyone's especially stressed out in the beginning. So that's why I did the mandated weekly updates, but I'm thinking about changing them to once every 2 weeks. Just because I think now I've caught up with everyone. I don't think there's a single person I haven't done a weekly update with at least once or twice. So I know where everyone's at, and I know where they are in terms of technical progress and everything. So how do you guys feel about once every 2 weeks for weekly updates starting next week? Personal projects you can still get each week, yeah. So what I mean is mandatory weekly updates. You guys can still make appointments with me once a week, but mandatory instead of like once every week, once every 2 weeks. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to turn on the fan just because it's hot. So it's gonna sound windy again. So we got about like 8 responses on that. Anyone else? No one else has opinions? We're all introverts or weird people, so you guys can definitely give your opinions. Yeah, Hawk 4 is due this Saturday. You guys, if you already booked once a week from now until forever, you can do that, or you can cancel as well. Yeah, depends what you want to do. If you want to keep them, you can keep them. If not, then I just want to make sure that you guys are still catching up. But I think the beginning ones are done. What I really wanted was to catch up from everyone in the beginning. But yeah, if you want to still do once a week, you can still do once a week. I still want it to be mandatory, like once every 2 weeks, just so we don't lose track of you. There were a few students that kind of just dropped off the radar and started doing their own thing and didn't start turning on homeworks, and we didn't really catch them until it's too late. So I want to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore. So is everyone just tired of JavaScript questions, or is everyone just relaxed from the week or the weekend? I got this haircut while being drunk at a house, so I had fun. Yeah. Maybe you guys can tell me what you guys did over the weekend. I got mine while the barber was drunk. Yeah, same. It was fun. I actually wanted to start networking more. Did not watch the Rick and Morty marathon, so that means you definitely watched the Rick and Morty marathon. I was thinking about starting some networking events because I'm going to be starting into alumni coordination role across the universities. So I want to experiment first with UCLA. We run like 3 cohorts, so I think there's a lot that we could do with that, especially like the graduates. We have some that are going to mid-level positions soon. Start some networking in there. Yeah, so Kevin is asking like how to start structuring it. Maybe the best way to go about it is like get other students and see how they go about it. Because if I do it from my perspective on how I solve problems, it's going to be very much from like a senior level perspective, which is like I already understand like what the code does and how to use the language and everything. So it might be better actually ask the TAs that don't have that much experience actually. Clay has like 5 years, so he might not be good, but Jonathan's only been around for like a year and a half, or only been coding for about a year and a half. Same with Keith and Daniel. So mid-level is just like, if you could build applications, create features, don't need too much hand-holding, but not necessarily someone that architects the application. Yeah, so in terms of networking events, I'm thinking about, so I'm employed by UCLA, and so I don't think I'm allowed to like create events that are alcohol-based. So I'm creating maybe like Eventbrite events and stuff like that, where you guys can meet up, and then maybe you guys can go drink afterwards or do whatever you guys want afterwards. No, I cannot. So let me know if you guys got any ideas on what you guys would like doing, like maybe even like organizing like board game groups, hiking, because that everyone does in LA. Fucking going to the beach, like beach volleyball. Last time someone started a softball team. That was interesting. Mike's mentioning. Oh no, Kevin. Okay, we'll talk about that in a bit. I just want to go to networking events now. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any ideas of what you guys would be interested in terms of like, help from graduates that were successful, how best to help you guys out, what would make you guys like, feel more as part of the group, more relaxed, and increasing efficiency in the program as well. Yes, so Thomas mentioned something that a lot of students did, which was creating or starting to solve problems at companies. Last time, a lot of students did that. For Project 2, I think 100% of the students did applications for real companies. And we're not, so I was thinking about doing Facebook group, but not everyone has Facebook. Everyone has Friendster and MySpace, but a lot of people don't have Facebook, or they might not be as on social networking. So I was thinking about actually having a singular Slack channel across UCLA, and using that to message each other. It's not as great as Facebook for events, so I'm not sure. I just don't want to exclude people that are against, like, Facebook and stuff like that, or social networking. I'm not sure what that number would be, but if it's anywhere like around 10%, I just don't want to, exclude anybody. All right. So I guess you guys don't have any more JavaScript questions? CSS, jQuery, anything like that? Anything? That would be like 5 people, Kevin, but yeah, definitely. There's like 3 people that know what it is in this whole cohort. I actually do think that creating groups based on interests, just like you do with like regular networking, would be important. And I want, like, the graduates that graduated a while back to start mentoring. I think that could really help a lot. I just don't want you guys to get too much help, because I want you guys to start being like self-efficacy. If you guys start getting like, a lot of tutoring, a lot of help, that actually doesn't help you learn as much. What I want them to be there for is mentoring, like helping you network, having fun, getting to know people that are interesting and all that. Yeah, so more like for the career side, I think. And they can help you every once in a while, maybe, for computer problems or like for programming problems. But I really want you guys to try and solve those as much as you can internally. All right. If you guys don't have any more questions, I guess that's it. Question was Bitcoin blockchain development. Yeah. So if you guys can just list those things up in study groups, what I can do is, or in events, I don't know, something like that. Post it somewhere, and I can just start creating some events, inviting everyone across all the different cohorts. So I think there's actually been a lot of cohorts that have graduated just from UCLA so far, and we also have like Berkeley, UCI, UC Davis. Like, I think everyone in the UC system, and then all the other universities as well. So eventually we're going to start integrating everyone into a single networking thing. and I'll be working on that soon. So hopefully you guys can take advantage of that. So if you guys want to move around to like different places and have the same community, it's kind of like a fraternity, but without the douchiness. It's more of like, yeah, like an alumni, just a way to coordinate with each other. Yeah. Yeah, I might need to build an alumni site. If you guys want to build it, yeah. I'm thinking about, does it need a site? Yeah, it might. I was thinking about actually just utilizing Slack, but maybe we could have a central coordination point, meaning like a website that just has a link to all the resources where you can get together and aggregates all of the events into a single place using APIs. That'd actually be a good first project. So if you wanted to create that, it could actually be fulfilling all of the requirements for Project One, which is that you need APIs. So create like fake events, and then make a request to those events and pull them into a gallery. So it shows all the events going on at one time on the page. Maybe have like rivalry coding competitions. So you could be like UCLA versus Berkeley or UCI or something, hackathons or something. Or it can be UC system versus University of Texas system, so UT Austin, UT Houston. Who can come up with the best project? I don't know, maybe we can get like employers to sponsor prizes or something. A lot of cool things that could happen out of this. But either way, I'd feel like a good community coming out of it, I think. All right. Well, I think that's it. So if you guys don't have any more questions, I'm just going to stop. And I'm going to see some of you guys tomorrow and the rest of you guys on Thursday. Is that it? Any more last minute questions? All right. Reading list for For documentation? Documentation for what? Things we will cover? What?
A reading list to go through MDN documentation and stuff like that, because when you get into the docs, there are so many things to read, and I have no idea what we're actually going to learn. If there was a list of things to read about, I would love to have that so I could read ahead and be prepared.
So the topics we're going to cover, right?
Yeah, because when you get into the docs for like JavaScript or whatever, and you start trying to look at all these things, I don't know which ones we're going to learn or not learn, and it's a lot of reading, and then you're learning things.
There's a what's it called? A markdown file I created called Topics to Know.
Okay.
Did you see it on GitLab?
I did not see it on GitLab. I was looking at the resources for the class, the beginning one that you posted.
Yeah.
And it had resources, but it takes you to the general documentation. And I start reading the documentation, but I don't know what things to really focus
on. So the topics to know, subdivide each day that we cover into individual topics. Furthermore, I've open sourced the the Postgrad curriculum into. Actually, that's not it. Let me see. Where the hell is it? There is curriculum resources. Here we go. So these are the official curriculum resources that are part of the university-based coding program. So
Right.
Cross-reference topics to know with that Git repo, and you should be good to go.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't look at them. I didn't cross-reference. So I looked at them individually, but when I get on the documentation, like on MDN or something like that, I'm like, oh my God, look at all this.
Yeah, so go to the topicstoknow.md, it's on GitLab, and that's it.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Cool. No worries. All right, everyone. Have a good night. See you guys later. For sure.